Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Storyfield. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At the Storyfield, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Hey, Storyfield. I'm excited to have Phillip Warren on today. Phillip, man, thank you for making time today.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
You know, the Lord puts you on my mind. And, I know you. And I don't know much of your story. I know a little bit. But today's going to be transformative for people. I really believe that. But I want to start off with maybe a hard question just to let people know where we're going. Okay?
Yes, sir.
How long were you in prison?
My sister has it down to the day, but 23 and a half years.
Wow.
I went in when I was 22 and came home October 2015 at age 45.
Oh my gosh. Now, before we rewind, because it's the Storyfield, we want to know that story. Where are you at with the Lord now, and where were you before you went in?
I read, this is not meant to be a plug for a book, but Not a Fan by Kyle Idleman. And I had surrendered my life to Christ at that point. Kind of a long answer to your story.
No.
2009, the prison unit I was on, I had been on it for almost 10 years. I had the job that I wanted. I lived where I wanted. I was in the craft shop. I had every privilege that you could have in there. And I was more miserable than I'd ever been.
Really? Oh my.
And it was the first time in my life that I cried out to God, not save me from my circumstance, but just do something because I can't keep doing this. And before that, the only time I ever prayed was when somebody goes to a bail bondsman. I didn't want a God. I did not want somebody else in control of my life.
Oh.
But I wanted somebody to rescue me from what I had gotten myself into. And growing up, I went to church. My sister and I both went to church with my mom. And I believed in Christ, the crucifixion, the resurrection. There was no doubt in my mind about that. And I would tell you I was a Christian. And I had to because there was nothing in my life that would give any evidence to it.
Oh, wow.
And I finally came to realize I wasn't. The believe, okay, you believe, you accept Christ, and you're saved.
Yeah, say the prayer.
But it's not me believing like I believe that camera sitting there. It's a belief that we act on, and I didn't have that. And I had made the mental assent to the existence of God in Christ, but I was not a Christian.
Wow.
And I am not enough of a theologian to know, where does salvation come? Yeah. And where you haven't. But there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about even the demons believe and tremble.
Yeah.
And they believe because they see, and it's not even a belief that's based on faith. And so where I was before was there? maybe even more lost than somebody that doesn't even know God, because I knew who he was, and I was going to live a self-directed life.
And you were how old again when you went in?
22.
Okay. And then today, where are you at with the Lord? And that's a hard question, because I know
not where I want to be.
Right.
And I hope that I am never feel like that I have arrived and I'm where I want to be. I hope that there is always something ahead that I'm striving towards.
But you feel like you made that jump between head knowledge and heart? And
Absolutely. The day before Thanksgiving in 2011, the peace that surpasses all understanding, I absolutely had that. Was the first time in my life that I was okay.
Wow.
I mean, and I'm sitting in the hallway, maximum security prison unit, and I sat there and I thought, man, I'm okay.
Wow.
And are there some things I would change? Yes, absolutely. And probably at that point, still the first thing I would want to change is to be on the other side of that fence or fences. But I couldn't, and I was okay with that. And I have had that peace to one degree or another ever since. There have been some days, that it's just barely there, and I have to remind myself that it's available.
It's like a mustard seed, huh?
Yes. Yeah, it had shrunk back.
Yeah.
There's days that it shrinks back.
100%.
But so thankful for God that He so very patient.
Yeah. Well, what got you there? Tell us the story. I mean, start kind of with your childhood. Did you grow up around Central Texas? Tell us about it. And
my granddad actually built a title company whenever my dad was like first, second grade. And my dad, his childhood was growing up in that. And
that's downtown. It was downtown Stephenville, Texas.
No.
Okay. Different one.
In Dickens.
Oh, okay.
Up in the Panhandle. My dad
okay.
was born in Childress and grew up in Matador. My dad met my mom. They moved to Artesia, New Mexico, and my dad was working for a title company out there, and decided he wanted to farm, and packed up everything and moved. I would say out close to El Paso. It's about 170 miles from El Paso, but it was the closest town, and was in Del City, which is north of Pecos, farming for 10 years. And I was born while they were down there. Wow. I was born in El Paso because it was the closest hospital. And my dad, I guess I was 5. They packed up, went back to Artesia. My dad went back to work for a title company. And then in 83, when I was 13, we moved to Texas.
Okay. And then this part of Texas, or?
Close, Eastland County.
Okay. Now, you mentioned some stuff conversations we had before. At 14, your parents split up.
Yes, sir.
And that caused a lot of issues. Talk us through that.
I caused a lot of issues.
Yeah.
My mom or dad, neither one drank. My dad drank before I was born, but shortly after I was born, he quit drinking. So I, maybe not exactly Leave It to Beaver childhood, but pretty close. Very normal, or what everybody would like to think of as normal childhood. Until we moved to Ranger, and I was 13 when we moved there. Shortly after, my dad moved out, and everything kind of fell apart for me. I have gone back and examined that a whole lot and don't really know exactly why I took off the direction I did, but I would bounce back and forth from my mom to my dad, and they both felt guilty, and I played on that. And as soon as one of them would impose any kind of rules or anything, no, I'm going to mom's, or no, I'm going to dad's.
You played it well.
And I used their guilt as a way of manipulating them until I was 16. And at some point before I turned 17, I just finally moved out. And me and another young man that I went to school with got an apartment.
Oh, wow. So you were on your own. at 17 as far as that was concerned.
Yes.
Like responsible for yourself and all that.
Yes, sir.
So, what were the next, 5 years like to the point of, when you went into prison?
So when I was 15, I got a learner's permit, and you have a paper one for a few days, then you get your little driver's license.
Yeah.
And my grandmother saw that, and she's like, "Oh, you got your driver's license. We'll get you a car." Well, I tried to justify that as I didn't lie to her. She just made that assumption. I didn't correct her.
Yeah.
So at 15, my grandmother bought me a little Mustang, little used 79 Mustang. Wonderful little car, reliable. And so now I had freedom to go and do whatever I wanted to do, and pretty much not any limit on how far I could go. And me and several kids started running around, and for adrenaline, just joy, destructive, started burglarizing stuff. By the time I was 17, I'd stolen a couple of cars, burglarized I don't know how many buildings, got caught on one of them, and the deal was I'd go turn myself in and admit to everything I'd done, and I would basically get a slap on the hand and get to go on. So they gave me 3 days grace without coming and arresting me for me to go turn myself in. And I did. And the sheriff's like, we've got a problem here, because they were thinking it was just in Eastland County, but what we had done covered 7 counties.
Oh, wow.
2 of the counties dropped the charges. There was 3 more counties that my grandmother paid restitution to, and I didn't go to court in. 2 other counties, I went to court and got deferred adjudication probation.
Wow.
My grandmother gathered me up and sent me to San Marcos Baptist Academy. It's a private boarding school. She's driving off, and I'm standing there at the dorm smoking a cigarette, and one of the kids told me, "Man, you can't do that." And where's the smoking area? And he's like, "No, there's no tobacco on campus. They will kick you out." And I'm looking, trying to see if I can catch my grandmother because I'm not staying there. My first year there was, I did really well, except for the fact that I had spent the last 3 or 4 years making my own decisions, and my parents couldn't even at that point tell me what to do. And so I'm not going to have another high school student telling me what I can and can't do, nor the administration. So I kept smoking, and I spent my first year there on restriction. So that meant I couldn't go home on weekends. I was there doing disciplinary details, but made it through that.
Was that a certain time period of a year long? Was it like a program or more like a school until you graduated?
No, it was not a disciplinary school.
Yeah.
In fact, I was the anomaly there. It's San Marcos Baptist Academy. It's junior ROTC.
Oh, okay.
It's a college preparatory school.
Okay.
And it's at that time it was one of the better high schools that you could go to springboard off of.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my graduating class the next year in '89, we represented 26 different countries.
Oh, wow.
Most all of the kids were American children that their parents, like we had a lot of kids from Saudi Arabia that their parents were overseas, lived in the American camps. But came back my senior year, went through leadership school and excelled through that. And they gave me sergeant. I was assistant squad leader. And was just amazed that they did that after my year before. And I went back to the dorms, got my cigarettes where I had them hid, and threw them in the trash.
Oh, wow, man.
And quit.
Yeah.
And I got a letter of accommodation from the U.S. Army. Got all kinds of awards my senior year, advanced more grades of rank than anybody had in school history.
Wow.
And it's simply because I was doing what I was supposed to do. I wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary, but I'd been so bad the year before that there was such a change there. Was supposed to have gone from there to Norwich University in Vermont, wanted to go into the military, wanted to go into the Army, and had met a girl in Stephenville that summer, had fallen in love, and thought that that's who at that point, there's two things I wanted. I want to spend my life with this girl, and I want to go into the Army. And somehow or another, in my mind, I made those two things mutually exclusive. And so I went to Vermont. She was here. I was talking to her on the phone each night. She's crying. I can't do this. I can't do this. And so I tried to force my family into getting her up there where I was at. If I had tried a different family member, that might have happened, but I tried it with my dad.
Yeah.
And my dad, if you tried to force him into anything, the only thing that was for sure is that is not what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So I ended up quitting up there and coming back.
Oh, wow.
And I since I was a little kid, I wanted to go into the Army.
Wow.
And came back and didn't realize it until later, but blamed this young lady for the decision I had made. And I systematically destroyed that relationship. Very, very unkind to her. The only fault that she played in that was maybe a little bit too much tenacity, and she wasn't going to give up on me.
Yeah.
But I think I'd kind of given up on myself at that point.
Wow.
And
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
You hear a lot of bitterness there after that coming back. I mean, especially if that's what you thought you were going to do your whole life. Yeah.
yes. And then I just spiraled down from there. It wasn't long until I got arrested again.
Were you running with the same crew? I mean,
just now it was really just me, and there was a couple of people here and there would tag along with me, but now I'm just angry.
Yeah.
And I say that like it happened after I came back from Vermont, but whenever my parents split up, I was very angry and did not know what to do with it. And I
mean, I'm taking time out right there. I mean, I think there's a lot of guys, particularly, wouldn't know how to verbalize that, and at least to admit that. I appreciate you saying that, like, and not knowing what to do with it, and not knowing how we feel, So,
anger it's an incredibly strong emotion, and it will eclipse almost anything else. And if you pour alcohol on top of that, or some other substance, any boundaries that you have or any inhibitions you have that slow your anger down, those are quickly swept aside. And I was angry, Josh, because I didn't know how to be sad. I didn't know how to be scared.
Yeah, that was the
And
one
so I was just
emotion.
mad.
Yeah.
And even, years later, I realized how self-defeating this is and how destructive it is. it's like an old wool blanket. It's scratchy and it's uncomfortable, but it's what you know, and you feel like it keeps you warm and it gives you comfort. But I don't know how many years I was a scared, hurt little boy, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I ran around, and I'm this angry young man that is going to fight the whole world, even when the world's not trying to fight me. I'm going to find a way to make it a fight. Started carrying a pistol and felt like I was invincible.
And were you going out, burglarizing, just kind of that whole pattern again?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you were doing? Yeah.
Got arrested again. Spent a few days in jail. Managed to bond out. Got one more second chance. They gave I had deferred adjudication, probation in 2 counties. And instead of revoking those and sending me to prison, they reinstated them as adult felony probations and gave me a 3rd 10-year adult felony probation for the new crime that they were aware of. Moved to Arlington. Had met a girl up there. Well, it was a girl I'd known for a while, but she had moved up there. I moved up there. We started dating. Everything was going pretty good. At this point, I am 20. No, I guess I had turned 21 at that point. She was still in high school, but whenever she and I started dating, she was pregnant and going through a divorce.
Wow.
And the deal was I would move up there and she and I would get an apartment. And this is how I'm living, yet I'd still tell you I was a Christian.
Yeah.
And the deal was she had to go to school. She had to graduate high school. And so she was going to school. I was working 2 jobs. And me and her brother were running around. Not running around on her, but out drinking. Just not outside of drinking and driving, not out committing crimes, just being childish. Should have been young men and we were just children.
Yeah.
There was a guy that worked with, and I really don't want to use any names.
No, that's fine, for sure.
But this girl I was living with, there was a guy that worked with her, and he got kicked out. He was living with his parents, got kicked out. And the story was that he went to him and told him, man, I've got a cocaine addiction. I need help. And they told him, get out. And that was the story that he told to us. And so this girl and I talked about it. It's hard for me not to use her name.
Yeah.
But we talked about it and decided that we would let Jeremy move in with us. And I got him a job working at Bennigan's where I worked. I was working there and at a Minyards. And he worked there for 3 or 4 months. And everything was bouncing along. I would tell you it was okay, but it was a ticking time bomb, even though I didn't realize it, I guess. And Jeremy would not have rent money. And my girlfriend and I, we had several pretty bad arguments about that. And I finally gave Jeremy some money. I said, here. I said, go give that to her. And that way she will get off my tail about you paying rent. And he said, man, whenever I get my income tax return, I'll pay you back. I said, okay, fine. And so he's running around with me and my girlfriend's brother, and the 3 of us just out running around drinking, being stupid. And my fall partner and I, the two of us and my girlfriend were going to my sister's graduation party, and it had been planned for a while. And the night that we were supposed to go, my girlfriend's like, no, I'm not going. And she's like, nobody needs to go anywhere tonight. No, I'm not going anywhere. And so my fall partner and I went ahead and went. And it was back up here, good ways from the Metroplex. And we left the party and we got out to Interstate 20, and I told my fall partner being my co-defendant in my crime.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay. No, I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
And I told him, I said, which way, right or left? And he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. He said, it's left. I said, if we go right, because neither one of us had to be back to work for like 3 days. So if we go right, we can go to El Paso, go across into Juarez. And when I was a little kid living out close to El Paso, that once a month we would go shopping there. And I hadn't been there since I was a little kid. And he said, my fall partner said, no, we'll go through Arlington and we'll go down to Corpus last weekend of spring break. So we end up going right back through Arlington, and we ended up going to Galveston and spent the weekend down there. Nobody knew where we were at. This is before cell phones.
Oh, yeah.
Get back home, and I get to my apartment, and everything's gone. TV, stereo, this kind of dates this, VCR, phone, answering machine, everything gone. Just a few minutes after I got there, my girlfriend showed up. She had packed her stuff up and moved out, because I just disappeared. And she was at her mom's, and I'm like, where's all my stuff at? And she said, Jeremy stole everything. So I called the police, and before the police gets there, Jeremy shows up. And I'm like, what's happening? He said, dude, we got robbed. And the police show up. They talk to him. He tells them the same thing. They talk to the neighbors. The neighbors said they saw Jeremy and another guy carrying the stuff out, loading it up. And so Jeremy finally admits that he loaded the stuff up and took it and pawned it. And the police tell me there's nothing we can do. He lives here. And I said, we let him stay here. He's not on the lease. He stole our stuff. They said, there's nothing we can do. And I said, okay, there's something I can do. And they're like, no, Mr. Warren, don't do anything rash. And so they escorted him out. My fall partner had told people where we worked, what had gone on. So they're trying to keep us on separate shifts. And I told him, I said, no. I said, there's not going to be a problem. I talked to Jeremy, and he agreed that he would give me the pawn tickets, and each week when he got paid, he would give me the money back where I could go get my stuff back. My girlfriend and I are going back and forth trying to reconcile. So she and I have got an apartment. Jeremy moved in with a guy that we work with. My girlfriend moved in with her mom. And at this point, my sister graduated from UT and she came to where I was at. She was living in the edge of Fort Worth. We were in Arlington. So I went and stayed with her. And it's like, I'm paying for an apartment. Nobody lives there. We did this for about 3 weeks of Jeremy paying me each week. And there was a party, most all the people that worked at Bennington's were at this party. And I was over there, and I went in Eric's apartment, and that's who Jeremy was staying with. And I look, and my phone that he had stole from me he still got it. And Jeremy had asked me earlier that evening, he said, man, do you have some beer? I said, yeah, there's some in the blazer. So he went to go get some beer. Well, when I went to leave, almost all my beer is gone, and it was my fall partner's blazer I was in, and he had a gold chain with a Krugerrand, the African coin, on it, on the mirror. It's gone. And I'm like, man, Jeremy got me again. And so I left and went back to my sister's apartment, and my fall partner showed up, and I told him what happened. And he's going to go get Jeremy right then. And my sister's trying to stop us. And my fall partner had my pistol. I don't have no idea why. I don't remember why, but he had it. My sister got it from him, put it in her bedroom. So while my sister and him are talking, I go in her bedroom, I get the pistol, and I told my sister, I said, look, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go talk to my ex-girlfriend and try to work things out. And so I leave. My fall partner, he gets in his blazer, he leaves. We meet right down the street. And I give him the gun. And we go back to the apartment complex where Jeremy lived. And my fall partner's like, man, I'm going to shoot him right there. I'm like, no, don't do that. We'll get him away from there. And we got over there and acting like everything's fine. And I told Jeremy, I said, man, we're fixing to go to Eastland County. Do you want to go? And he wanted to go score some dope. So he got in with us, and we take off for Eastland County. At some point on the way up there, I asked my fall partner, I said, do you have it? And he said, yeah, I hear it. And he handed me the pistol. And we drove to Eastland County and got way out on county roads. And I pulled over and said, man, I got to go to the bathroom. Jeremy said, man, I need to go too. And so he got out the passenger side. And I got out, walked around, and I leaned down to my fall partner. He rolled the window down. And I said, do I do it or not? And he said, yeah, blow his effing head off. And I stepped up behind Jeremy, and I shot him in the back of the head. And he fell back towards me. And he's laying right beside the car door. And my fall partner starts trying to get the door open, and Jeremy's laying there. Managed to get the door open, gets out, and grabs Jeremy by his feet and starts dragging him. And I heard something, and I told him, I said, stop. And I ended up having to shove him. I said, he's not dead. And Jeremy sat up and grabbed the back of his head, and he said, somebody help me, I've been shot. And then my fall partner came at me, and he was yelling. And I don't know what he was yelling. He was either yelling, kill him, or don't kill him. But he was trying to get the gun from me. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in front of the car, moving the slide on the pistol to make sure it's empty. And I put it in my pocket. We then move Jeremy's body off out into the woods. We get in the car, leave. We get about halfway back to Arlington, and I turn around, and my fall partner he'd crawled over in the back seat and went to sleep. I turn around, he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm going back out there. And he said, why? I said, what if he's not dead? What if he's laying there? And I drove all the way back out there, and no flashlight or anything, an angle in the car on the dirt road, can't see anything. turn around and get back almost to Arlington, and my fall partner wakes up and starts freaking out. And I tell him, I said, look, you're going to be okay. I said, they can't prove we did anything, and we go through this whole criminal thing of, this is how we're going to get away with this. And I said, they have no body. They have no crime scene. And there is no way they will ever get a conviction. It doesn't matter if they know we did something. They don't know what we did. They don't know where we did it. And I told him, I said, no matter what, I will not let you go to jail. I said, just calm down. And so we got back to my sister's apartment. And we're in my sister's car. We get back to my sister's apartment, and it's like 7:30 that morning. And my sister, I made her late to work, and so she had just called in. And so my fall partner and I both go in and talk to my sister for a minute. I said, man, I'm going to go get something to eat, and I'll be back. And I don't know at what point we had stopped drinking, but still far from sober. And I want to go talk to my girlfriend. So I go over there. I come back. When I get back to my sister's apartment, she said, I'll see you later. I'm going to work. And I said, I thought you called in. I need to go in. Got in her car and took off. And I laid down, basically passed out. My fall partner woke me up later, and he said, hey, take me and drop me off at work. And then, because he went to work at 4, I went to work at 5 that evening. Dropped him off at work, came back, got ready. I went to work. When I got there, he said, man, Eric's asking too many questions, man. I'm out of here. He said, I got to go. And I went and clocked in, and here comes Eric. He said, man, where's Jeremy? And I said, I don't know. He said, man, I just got this feeling something bad happened. I said, man, I have no idea. I said, he got in with us. He wanted us to stop someplace in Fort Worth. I said, off of Rosedale, which is like all drugs and just crazy. And I said, we stopped at a house. He went in. We waited probably 15 minutes, honked the horn. He didn't come out. And he said, you left him out. I said, man, I'm not going to get out in that neighborhood. No. And I said, I have no idea. I said, maybe he's still there. Hi. I have no idea. There's a whole bunch of inconsequential events later that night. I end up going to my girlfriend's house whenever she was staying with a friend of hers at this point, had moved out of her mom's. And I went there and sat there and started talking to her, and she was laying on the couch. I was sitting on the floor. Next thing, I wake up the next morning, I'm laying there in the living room floor. I guess I passed out while I was talking to her. And a few minutes after I woke up, there's bam, bam, bam on the door. And she's like, who is that? I said, just go let him in. And she said, what? I said, just go open the door and let him in. And she came running back in there in the room where I was at. And she said, Phillip, there's police everywhere out there. She said, I don't know what y'all did. Get out the window and go. And I said, just go open the door. And they came in, they arrested me, and they were reading me my rights. And when it was U.S. Marshals that came and arrested me. And they told me that I was under the arrest for the murder of Jeremy DeGrassi. And I looked at my girlfriend, tears just ran down her face, and she said, what have y'all done? My fall partner, his uncle, was a U.S. Marshal, and he went and turned himself in.
Oh, wow.
Can we take a break? So, U.S. Marshals arrested me because it was my fall partner's uncle and the people that he worked with. They transported me back to well, actually, the Eastland County Sheriff and a Texas Ranger came and picked me up and brought me back to Eastland County. And they wanted to take a statement from me. And I cooperated. I gave them a statement, admitted to what I had done. And in the process of this, there was a diagram laying there. And it's a diagram of a skull. And it's looking from the back.
Mm.
And there are four holes in it. And I asked them, I said, what is that? And they said, that's what you did. That's Jeremy.
Mm.
I fired one shot and I asked him, I said, why are there 4 holes? And they said there's 3 entrance wounds and 1 exit wound. So after my fall partner came at me trying to get the gun, 2 more shots were fired. And I got the distinct impression over time that they really wanted me to implicate that my fall partner had fired the other 2 shots. Josh, I don't know. I mean, the first shot was fatal.
Yeah.
Maybe not instant. And so me sitting here saying I don't know who fired the other 2 shots is not a way of trying to escape any kind of responsibility. I don't know who fired them.
Yeah.
But
what did the next time period look like from there to like sentencing? I mean, you gave him a statement, so imagine. Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
I gave them a statement that night whenever they got me there, and they asked me, do you need to make a phone call? I said, no. And they said, Phillip, you need to call somebody. I said, no, I don't. I had been in so much trouble. I had disappointed my family so many times. In this small county, my grandmother was born and raised there. My mom was born and raised there. And they're trying to get me to call somebody, and I won't. And so they put me in a holding cell. And about 6 o'clock the next morning, the jailer came and woke me up, and he said, you got a phone call? And I said, I don't want to make a phone call. And he said, no, you've got a phone call. Go pick that phone up. And man was a little bit unkind to me, but I'd had some interactions with him in the past, and I had created all that. And when I say unkind, I just he spoke kind of harshly to me, and I more than deserved that. I picked up the phone, and it was my dad, and he had been calling up there all night because they had me on the news when they brought me in. And they finally, for my dad, put me on the phone. And he told me, I got an attorney. He told me the attorney he got. And he said, if that's not who we want, we can get somebody else later. He said, I am on the way over there to see you as soon as they will let me in. And so they held me. My attorney was there trying to get in. They held me until I signed a written transcription of my statement, and then they let my attorney in. Didn't change anything. I'd already given them the statement. Right. My attorney's like, what have you done? He said, they will go after capital punishment. He said, you signed your death warrant. There is nothing I can do, and walked out.
Wow.
And a few minutes later, they pulled me out to visit my dad. And he said to me, he said, do not say a word. And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a little Post-it notepad. And the only thing written on it said, did you do it? And he said, do not say a word. And I nodded my head. I admitted to my dad that I did. And he said, okay, we're going to get you out of here. Twenty-three and a half years later, he was there to pick me up.
Wow.
Never, ever gave up on me. Even through all the years that I had given up on myself. And thank you for sharing that. There's so much there, and I really appreciate it. I want to take an intersection and now get into forgiveness for a second. Because before we started, it came up that Jeremy's family had actually reached out, or you reached out when you heard that story and forgave you. And then I want to talk about the Lord's forgiveness of you. And we've heard the story, and let's talk about forgiveness for a second. Let's talk about the transformation. So, 2009. Do we already have all that? Okay, when we're talking, so 2009, I came to Christ. It was the first time that I truly surrendered. And my life started changing, but it was an incremental process. The incredible thing is I was still in the pit that I had dug. I still had the shovel in my hand, and I was still digging. And God came and met me right there. It's not, I changed my attitude, I changed my behavior, and I become something that God can use
up to get to Him. Yeah,
He met me right there in the midst of all my chaos and misery and anger and hate, and loved me.
Wow.
So I surrendered in the latter part of 2009. Beginning of 2010, I did a Kairos walk, which is like a walk to Emmaus. Most incredible. You have all these people that come into the prison, and they spend 3.5 days with this group of prisoners, just modeling and reflecting Christ's love.
Wow.
Did that. Had a huge impact. Helped facilitate changes that some of them I knew I needed to make, some of them I didn't know I needed to. And seeds had been planted over the years.
I was going to ask you, was there a minister there? Were there people coming in and just did ministry at the prison? Like, where did you start? You've had the foundation, but where did you start hearing more about?
There had been people, coming in. I was in the chapel sometimes and heard some of them, but I was down there buying and selling tobacco or drugs or whatever. And it was a way to meet up with somebody.
Wasn't there to hear the preacher.
No. Until 2010, when I'm like, something's got to change. This is going on with me, and I'm not saying anything to anybody about it. But I'm watching another guy in the craft shop with me, and he comes in, lays a Bible down, and goes to doing what he's doing. And I'm watching this for 2 or 3 weeks, and I said, and I can use his name because he would have.
Yeah.
I said, David, what are you doing? And he laughed. He said, man, I'm going to church. And I said, for what? And he said to go to church. And so now I'm watching David because I'm like, he's got cigarettes. He's doing something. And he was doing something. He was doing the most important thing that he ever done in his life. He was seeking something different. And he was reading his Bible, and he was going to church and seeking after God. And as hard-headed as I am, I look at this guy, I'm like, man, he's hard-headed. But I mean, that now I'm not the only one that's doing this. He doesn't know that I am, but I'm not alone. I'm somebody that this is where I've been. This is what I'm doing for all these years, and I want something different. Mike Fritcher, the pastor of Cottonwood, came in one Wednesday evening every month. And so now I'm in church every time the door opens, the chapel. Every time it opens, I'm there. Because I want to learn. I start reading my Bible. And this is not a judgment on the pastor of the church that my mom took me to when I was a little kid. But I'm reading my Bible, and I'm finding a completely different God than I heard about when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was that preacher's message, but my perception was a God that was a disciplinarian. It's get right or you're going to burn. Yeah. And I'm reading the Bible, and it's a God that loves us. Cannot tell you I had read the whole Bible. In fact, I still can't tell you I have. I started first page of the Old Testament, and I got into the prophets and got bogged down. So
the only one. I think I hit that wall many times.
Well, I mean, I made it through Numbers and all of that. I'm like,
at the hard part time.
And then I jumped over to the New Testament and read through it. I have gone back and read a lot of the prophets. I'm sure that I've done it in bits and pieces. I'm sure there's still some that I have not read. I thought, okay, I've got a decent perception of what's expected of me. I have an idea of who God is. I've got forgiveness. I understand that. And so I started coming up for parole in 2006. Got a 3-year set off, which means they denied my parole. They will review me again in 3 years.
Do you really come up in front of a board
no,
like the movies,
No,
okay.
you're well, in some states, maybe in Texas, no. You may or may not see somebody that just comes around to the unit. It's not one of the actual voting board members, but you may or may not see somebody that will go through your file and make sure that everything in it is accurate.
Okay. What was your actual sentence, though?
55 years.
Okay.
And I had to do 13 years and 9 months to become eligible for parole. went to visit. My mom and dad are both there, and I'm like, okay. They got along. The first couple of years after the divorce, they didn't have a whole lot to do with one another because there was a lot of hurt and some anger. But after that, they became friends. I was such a problem that neither one of them could deal with it alone, and I'm not taking credit for their friendship. But
you may have helped bond them though.
I may have kind of forced that on them, but they ended up very, very dear friends throughout the rest of my dad's life. But they were both there, and I walk in, and I'm like, okay, this isn't good. And they sat and talked to me for a second. And I said, okay, what'd they give us? And it's almost like they were scared to tell me. And this is before I came to Christ. This is 2006, and they said 3-year set off. And I said, okay, it could have been worse. Could have been worse.
So they punted it down the road 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so 2009, come up for parole again. They give me a 2-year set off, so it's another 2 years. After that is when I came to Christ, surrendered the end of 2009. 2011, I come up. I feel like, okay, some things have happened in my life. God finally got my attention. I'm hopeful, but it just...
God, I was about to say, that's kind of screw with your hope a little bit. Like
it wasn't...
just like 3 years, like you get all hoped and like, no, 2 more,
It's... Yeah, it's something. But for the review in 2011, I mean, I wanted to go, but at that point, I don't think I had reached the point that I really thought that one day I would go home. I walked in there knowing that I would die. Yeah. In my mind, I knew that I would die before I went home. And then whenever I thought, I might live through this, but my parents won't. My parents won't still be there when I go home. 2013 was coming up for parole. And I thought, you know what, maybe now is my time. Because I'm growing in my walk. David and I, we're having Bible studies out on the rec yard instead of out there fist fighting on the handball court. I'm in church every time. I am, to the best of my ability, which my ability is not much, but the best I could, I'm walking out. I'm walking after Christ, regardless of where I'm at. And I'm there still, maximum security prison unit. But 2013 was coming up for parole. And at this point, I want God's will for my life. It's not about my will anymore. Wow. But I want God's will. And I'm laying there in my bunk, and I'm praying. And I thought, what if God wants to use me to speak into somebody's life? Wow. Right here where I'm at. Do I want God's will? What if that person isn't even going to get here for another 10 years?
Wow.
And wow. I laid there in that bunk with tears streaming down my face, and I said, God, your will, not mine. But if it, and I said, I told him, I said, God, I can't help it. I want to go home.
Yeah.
And if this can be part of your will, please. But if it's not, just give me strength. And, oddly enough, when I came to Christ, the job I had, I worked at night, and I'm taking my Bible out there, and I worked in the maintenance shop. So if nobody needs tools or parts or anything, I'm sitting there all night not doing anything. And so I took my Bible out there and I'm reading. And the guy that worked out there with me was a Jehovah's Witness.
Huh.
And we spent about 4 months together reading Bible, looking at scripture. And finally he told me, he said, man, you and I believe differently. I said, I know that. And he said, can I explain to you why I believe what I believe? And I said, yeah, and explain what you believe, because I know it's different, but from not from your perspective, I don't know. And so it took him a few days, and he came back and had 4 pages of scriptures and walked me through them. And I said, can I take your notes? And he said, yeah. And so that weekend I read through it and stuff. And I told him, I said, I understand how you got to where you're at. I read those same scriptures, and I do not get the same thing out of them. I can understand how you could do that. And I told him, I said, brother, I'm not telling you you're wrong. But you and I get 2 different things out of it. And I said, and that God will decide that.
Yeah.
I said, now what I read and the way I understand it, you have missed the mark. I said, but I'm not condemning you. And we still very good friends. He is out now, has been to visit a few times, and he walks out his faith.
Yeah.
And he believes in God. It saddens my heart that he doesn't accept Christ. Yeah. And I feel like he is, he's missed the mark.
Yeah.
But I pray for him, and I pray for God's mercy over his life, because he is somebody that genuinely seeks after God, even though.
That was in 2013, during that time?
Leading up to 2013. And in one of the scriptures that I had read out there was the one about the clay jar, and we're in this vessel, we're pressed but not crushed, and I'm horrible about paraphrasing stuff.
I know what you're talking about. It's almost like we're squeezed but not,
we're not broken.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down in my notes, and it's like, remember this because you may need it. And I went back to that because in 2013 I got another 2-year set off. Now I'm thankful for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I was not resentful, but I wasn't thankful for it either one. I was just, God, get me through this. Shortly after that, Jeremy, the young man that I shot and killed, his mom and stepdad, which was really his dad, had raised him since he was pretty much an infant, came into contact with my dad and my sister. And they wrote a letter which would allow me a special review. In other words, the different group, different people in the parole board will review your file, but in light of new evidence or a statement from the victim or the victim's family, they will re-review you. Worst case scenario, nothing happens. Best case scenario, they grant you parole.
Oh, wow.
So it took about a year for that process. In 2014, they gave me remain set, which means I still do my 2-year set off. And I'd gotten transferred from the Hughes unit on a different unit, darker place than I was. A lot of problems with suicide. It's up in the Panhandle, Iowa Park, and it's just, I don't know, it's just different, but it's, like I say, they have a lot of problem with suicide up there. have a parole attorney. He wants me in a different parole district. I sign up for a vocational course, and I transfer to the Styles unit, which is in Beaumont, a horribly, horribly dark place. But I got the Remain set in 2014. I was still in Iowa Park, and transfer to the Styles unit. It's a few days before I can use a phone or anything. I call my dad. Not a cell phone, not one of those kind of phones. It's the phones that they actually allowed us.
It's attached to the wall.
Yes. I called my dad, and he said, I've been talking to the halls, and they are trying to get a face-to-face interview with one of the parole board members. In fact, he said they're calling all of them and writing letters. He said that they live in Cleburne, and they have a business there, and whenever I come home, if I cannot find a job, that I can go to work for them.
And this is Jeremy's parents?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I stood there for a little bit, and I told my dad, I said, I'm not saying anything because I don't have anything to say. I don't know what to say. And he said, well, they'd teach you a trade. He said, you could learn a trade. And I said, no. Somebody teach me how to forgive like that.
Oh, wow.
And going back to having read the Bible and thought I understood forgiveness, no, Josh, I had missed it. My perception of forgiveness is that I forgive you and I harbor no ill will towards you. I have truly given it to God, and there's no resentment. And we both go on about our life. That's not what we want from God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what these people offered me. You have hurt me. You have hurt my family. And I forgive you, and I am willing to take you into my life for your benefit, not to help them in any way, but solely for my benefit.
Wow.
And that's what God gives us. And so many times I'd say we, but I don't necessarily take it for granted, but I lose the importance of it at times. How much He forgives, how willing He is to forgive. He doesn't offer us justice. He offers us forgiveness, grace, mercy.
Well, I love the second phrase that I hardly ever think about of, it's not just not being angry and, it's just like Him trying to intentionally like bless you, like for your benefit. That's incredible. I mean, you don't really think about that, and you don't think about God thinking like that. But here's some people who are doing that exactly for you.
It's
as a picture.
I get so convicted. The October 2nd was the day I came home.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, we should walk in gratitude every day. But for me especially, that day, so convicting because I spent that day mired in frustration and resentment. And
so hang on.
a
So
little
back,
bit
you're in Beaumont now, right? So you're in Beaumont. You got a year left.
A year left.
And then you get to the October 2nd. Did you know it was coming?
So my faith is a part of every conversation I'm having. Because it is the central focus of my life at that point. The Styles unit is a lot of people, I guess, think of prison as the cesspool of society,
Mhm.
and you could look at Styles' unit as being the cesspool of the prison system. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So much corruption, not just the inmates. They finally had to put up cell phone blockers because they could not control what all was being brought into the unit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad.
It's bad.
But so it's 2015. I come up for parole. They grant me parole.
What is there any like do you know that's coming like a week in advance? Hey, you're up for parole, or 2 weeks, or a month, or and then you just wait to hear like
you started the review process. And by that time, they had gotten a little bit better about pulling you out and letting you know. And
like today we're reviewing you.
no,
it'll be
your file has been taken out of the warehouse and it is making its circuit.
Okay.
And the 3 people that vote on you, they may see each other, a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
Because your file will go the first one, they will look at it, they will vote. It will go to the second one. They will review your file, vote. If it's a split vote, then it goes to the third one. If you get 2 no's, the third person never sees it. So that interview with that lady, she asked me, "Are you involved in any faith-based programs?" And I looked at her and it just kind of astounded me. And I said, as long as I've been coming up for parole, I said, nobody's asked me that. And she said, "Are you?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "How often do you go? Once every 2 weeks, once a month?" I said, "Whenever the chapel doors open." And she kind of looked at me. I said, it's not for parole. I said, there's a bunch of classes I took and I was taking them for parole. And I said, I got things out of them that I didn't sign up for, and it has changed my life. And now I go for me, not for y'all. And they gave me, I think it was a FI3. We grant you parole, and then there's a whole laundry list of different ways that can come about. Some people, anger management. You have sex offender programs. You have drug and alcohol counseling. And that's because of me admitting that we were drunk the night that we committed the crime. And that was not part of my story, and it never is, because it is not an excuse and it does not minimize in any way what I did.
Yeah.
But for the parole board, it makes a difference to them. So they're going to send me to a therapeutic community. So I will go do that anywhere from 9 to 18 months and then go home. And I'm happy.
October 2nd.
Well, no, it's not a date. It's just I've made parole, and now I'm waiting until. And with that version of parole, you may wait 6 or 8 months until there is an opening in one of these facilities where they can move you there,
like the transition place,
right? To participate in the rehab program. About 2 weeks later, the parole office calls me back out. And the lady said, they're going to revote you. And I said, revote me? What does that mean? And she said, well, they're going to review your file again and revote you.
Oh, man.
And I said, so I don't have my FI3 anymore. And she said, no, you do not. I just sat there with my head down, and she said, are you okay? And I said, yeah. I said, been in here 23 years, finally made parole, and they take it. And she said, Mr. Warren, where's your faith? She said, all the other times I've talked to you, you're talking about your faith. She said, where's your faith? And I said, I have faith God will get me through this. I said, but I'm not going to lie. I don't want to go through this. And she said, why are you thinking it's not going to be better? I said, I have parole. I don't need better.
Yeah.
And she said, it's going to be okay. And took about 4 weeks.
Oh my gosh, Phil.
4 weeks of can't eat, can't sleep,
Oh my
stressed, stomach tied in a knot. She calls me out and she said, you've got an FI1 and you will be home in 30 days.
Oh my gosh. Freedom. Wow.
And then, no matter how much I'd grown in my faith, still, I'm still human and still worry about stuff. And I'm talking to my family and they're like, we're all coming to get you. No, let me take a bus home.
Yeah.
One person come get me. I don't want all y'all ride in a car and lose my whole family in a car wreck while y'all, it's the crazy stuff. But they all made it there to pick me up, and
wow.
It's
what did that feel like walking out of there?
Scared.
Yeah.
Scared of failure. Not very different scared than walking in. But still very, very scared. Can I find a job? Am I going to be able to support myself?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like all those other.
And I had another worry. This is something that we haven't talked about, but my sobriety. And what am I going to do about that? Because this last 5 years, I fought with that with almost no success. Josh, I've been home about 3.5 weeks. And I thought, I've been clean and sober for 3.5 weeks. And that may be the longest stretch since I was 15.
Wow.
Now that I've thought about it, here we go again. But I had spent 5 years begging God, please take this from me. And he didn't. Because he knew better than me. Because if he had have, then I would have thought I had some sort of control over it. And that I could shut it off. And I don't.
Yeah.
I have control of whether I pick up and use again. But if I do, then I have no control over it after that. And so it's October 2nd is my sobriety date, because that's, and with AA, it's my sobriety date because that was the day that I could choose whether or not.
Wow.
If somebody else wasn't choosing for me.
How has the Lord been faithful since you've been out? How's he taking care of you?
My family, the relationship I have had with my family, not even talking about the new additions.
Yeah.
Just,
of course.
My mom, I lost my dad. November will be 2 years. And I miss him.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm a little sad about it. Or a lot sad. But, Josh, I came home. I had 8 years with him that he or I, neither one thought we would have. He didn't think he would live to see me come home. I didn't think I would live to come home. And then I didn't think he would live for me to come home. Yet we had 8 years. My mom, she was living at Lake Leon. She's here in Stephenville now. See her weekly.
That's awesome.
I have a wonderful job. Understand this is the exact same thing I would say to somebody else.
100%.
Work for an incredible family, which is your dad, your brothers, you. Seen so many people get out and have such a hard time finding a job because felony conviction. Some of it is, it's them and they are still defeating themselves, but others that, it's just hard.
Mary,
but your dad,
oh yeah,
your dad called me, and people have asked me about interviews and stuff, and I go back into prisons and speak.
Yeah,
and I said, man, I don't know what to tell you on that. I said, I know it's hard, but I said, the man I work for called me. And I went in great. And I said, and it's not, hey, I am so good at what I do. I said, no. I said, he and my dad were business partners for a lot of years. And I said, I went in and met with him and with you. And it was a conversation about who are you? How did your life change? Why did it change? Who are you now? And the best I remember, Josh, we didn't even talk about, had I gotten a degree, what kind of education, and I'm so blessed that we didn't talk about that, because at that point I still couldn't even turn a computer on, I don't think.
Oh my gosh, you're killing it though now. It's amazing.
Oh, but then 2019 I met my wife.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's such an amazing story. She didn't like kids and hated dogs when I met her.
I think you said you had 4 German Shepherds.
We do.
I had a child.
And one of them's hers. I had a couple of German Shepherds, and I had a litter of pups, and I'm trying to show them to her. She didn't want to see them. She didn't like dogs. Had a cat. And I'm not one of the people that hates cats, but I take them or leave them. I had never sat there and go, man, I'd like to have a cat. No.
I'm with you 1,000%. I may be more close to the hate cats too.
No, I will swerve to not hit them if they're on the road. But I gave her a German Shepherd puppy for Valentine's Day. And she was like kind of okay. And a couple of days later, I came home from work, and she's laying on the couch, and this puppy's laying over her. I've got a picture of it. And I'm like, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
You're a dog person now. And so we have a cat and 4 German Shepherds. And this lady that didn't want kids, didn't like kids, she's got a niece and nephew, and she said, I love them and I love spending time around them, but she said, I don't want kids. And I came home from work one day, and being male and oblivious to everything, she's like, I need to talk to you for a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And I started to tell her, hey, talk to me while I'm changing clothes, because we had projects that we were working on. So I'd get off work, I'd come home, change clothes, go to work. And I, for whatever reason, I didn't do that. And I walked in the living room, and she said, here, sit down. She's like, how'd your day go? I'm like, okay. And so now I'm realizing, okay, something's up. And she hands me a pregnancy test. And I said, whose is this? She said, that's ours. And I'm like, okay. And I'm just sitting there, and my mind's reeling. And I think at that point I was only terrified on one level, because she doesn't want kids. Where is this going? And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah. Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And Josh, I looked at her. Tears ran down her face, and she said, "I've known since 11 o'clock this morning, and I have never wanted something to be so much in my life."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay.
Oh, praise God.
And so over the next couple of days, did 3 more pregnancy tests. The next morning, I leave there and I pull up to the convenience store. I've got a little, well, I have hit a deer since then and replaced it, but I had a little dimple in my front bumper because my mind the next morning is still reeling, and I bump into one of your.
Oh, you at the convenience store.
Yeah. And the more it becomes real, the more almost terrified I become, because now I'm right now I'm not finding my identity in who Christ says I am. Kind of an ebb and flow, but I'm finding my identity in the past.
Yeah.
And what is the saying? Anything you can do once, you can do twice. And I'm like, I have torn down so many barriers in my life that are healthy, good barriers that are supposed to be there. And I've walked through these things, and I've, what am I going to do? This child is going to be born. How do I model Christ to them? How do I get this right?
Yeah.
And then our little girl's born. And the most miraculous thing in the world, filled all these holes in my life that I didn't know I had.
Wow.
And they send us home from the hospital. There's no owner's manual.
Oh,
how are we supposed to do this?
yeah.
But God and the people He's put in mine and Cynthia's life, Mother's Day, my wife got baptized. Not this Mother's Day, but right after Mavis was born.
Oh, man.
And I was like, how do I do this where my wife and I don't share the same faith, and in everything I've done, I may have failed at this more than once, but I speak to a lot of people. All of us, whether we know it or not, we're speaking to people that do not share our faith. But when I'm in a setting that's the whole point of it, which maybe it should be the point of it no matter what conversation we have. But I will tell people, look, I am telling you my story, which is horrific. I am sharing God's story and what God has done in my life. But I'm not trying to impose my faith on you.
Yeah.
I will tell you how great my God is and what He can do. And He can do so much more than what I've seen Him do in my life. Yeah. And so I'm trying to live this out with my wife, that I don't want her to ever feel like I'm trying to impose my faith on her. And she told me, she said, "Phillip, I want to go sit and visit with Mike. Are you okay with that?" Yes. Because she was talking about Mike Pritchard, Pastor Pritchard. Yes. And, I'll drive you right now. And came back, and she told me, she said, "I've accepted Christ, and I'm going to get baptized." And I'm just like, just hit my knees. Thank you.
Yeah.
But,
oh, wow.
But,
oh, wow.
God, I mean, you asked me, about now, and since I've been home, so far, far, far beyond anything that I could ever deserve. so much of it beyond anything that I would have prayed and asked for, because it's things that I guess I had just disqualified myself for. The wonderful thing is God has got a better plan for us than we have for ourselves.
Wow. I know that could be one of my last questions, and you may have just summed it all up anyways. What's your encouragement to somebody based on your story? And this whole thing has been an encouragement, especially the last few minutes too. But does anything come to mind you'd want to say to somebody who maybe even on the fence, or maybe who's done something horrible?
There is no pit that we can dig, or dig deep enough, that God will not come to us and meet us right there. I mean, even when we're still digging that pit, He's still, and I say come and meet us in that pit, but that's not accurate, because He was there, and that breaks your heart to think about that. But He was standing right there next to me through all of this, through all that I did. It wasn't like I went and did all this stuff and then God is willing to show up. No, He was there the whole time, but I couldn't see Him. And we come to faith in God. Sometimes it's an overnight thing, and for some of us it's a slow incremental process, but we get a new toolkit, and we have a new set of tools for dealing with life. And it doesn't have to be alcohol. It doesn't have to be a substance. It doesn't have to be a behavior. It doesn't have to be a set of self-defeating attitudes. And even on a more positive note, it doesn't have to be this wonderful, successful career that still distracts us just as much from Christ. And we've had those things. We come to Christ. We've got a new toolkit. I've got a new way of dealing with life.
And you're a new creation. A literal new creation.
Absolutely, we are. People will say something about, God restored your life. No. Not in the sense to restore is to bring something back to what it was. No. Yeah. I don't even know at what point, but we shot right past that and went on to a much better life than...
That old is gone.
The old is gone.
Yeah.
And, circumstances, life keeps happening. I mean, we surrender to Christ, we're walking with Him, and life still happens.
Yeah.
And there's days that something happens and you're kind of lost in that. Sometimes for several days, He's right there. It's like, nothing's changed. And then, if you give me just 1 minute, there was a guy that spoke at the Hughes unit, and he was talking about faith and, what are we supposed to do with that? And he said, if you got 2 dogs, you get 2 puppies. You feed one, you take care of it, and the other one you just give enough to keep it from dying. He said, which one's going to grow? Which one's going to be strong? Which one's going to be healthy? And he said, what are you feeding? And he said, and it's absolutely true, what I focus on, what I give my time, my thought, my emotion to, my focus, that's what I'm feeding. And life's happening, and I've got this going on, and if I let that become my focus, then that's what's going to loom large in my life. And I am human, I am flawed, and things will get the better of me.
Mm-hmm.
But for the grace of God, they don't own me after that. They process a little bit, pray, and we move forward. And
what a beautiful story. You're an incredible man of God. I appreciate that story. Like, that's going to encourage a lot of people, Phillip. So thank you for your authenticity, your complete vulnerability, and your glory to God. Thank you.
it has to be to God, because that's the only good part of my story is Him and what God's done.
Well, I can't wait to keep watching Him use you. So thanks for making time to be on here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the Storyfield podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The Storyfield.